All right, I want to take a look today at the UniFi controller software. Now, I do add the word software because they just have it listed as like UniFi controller. And for those of you new to UniFi, you may not be familiar how the product works. You download the controller software, so you log into the controller, and that's what manages the Wi-Fi devices and several other devices that UniFi makes. Now, that's not to be confused with the Cloud Key, which is a controller box that runs the UniFi controller in a small miniature device. I'll link below to a review of that device. It's really pretty handy. But you can run the controller software on Windows, Mac, or a Linux distribution such as Debian and Ubuntu are supported. I imagine there's other ones you can get it running under. It just runs in a Java. We're going to cover installing it on Windows because I'm assuming most people are going to install it on Windows, but it's really just as easy to install on Linux as well. With Linux, it has a couple other add-ons that you have to throw in there, but nothing that difficult to set up on there. If enough people ask me for it, I will make one how to install on Linux as well. So I've already downloaded a file, and it's the latest one as of today, which is March 12th, and it's the 2017 2.8 firmware, which is 5.4.11 cloud controller. So let's close this, and I've already got it here on a Windows desktop. The installer is really straightforward. It's mostly just next and yes, because you don't really do any settings in this part of it here. All the settings come after, and you configure everything through a web interface. So we're going to go ahead and kick this off. And now the screen, it's started. So this is the UniFi controller 5.4.11, and then you can hit launch browser, and it's going to launch in a browser. Now, this is actually running in a virtual machine, so I don't really want to launch the browser from inside here, so I'm going to run it externally, and I'll show you how to do it. It's pretty simple. So once you have it running on whichever device you have it running on, be it Linux, be it Windows, or be it a Mac, you go to the IP address from another browser. Now, if you're on that computer, you could just do localhost, but we're on another computer, so we're going to go HTTPS, the IP address, :8443. It is important that you put the HTTPS, or you'll get the page isn't working for invalid response. So we go here, go ahead and proceed because it's a self-signed certificate in here, and it's going to run us through the setup file. Now, you can alternatively restore from backup. So if you have a backup of the UniFi software, you can just push that right now, and it will grab the old backup and just restore your settings. It has the easy way to export, which I'll get to that later in the tutorial here. Next, we have one unadopted UniFi, and it wants to know if you want to adopt at the same time. I plugged this in on purpose. We have one we're installing for a client, but we're going to go ahead and adopt it, and go ahead and do this so we have something to test with here. We're going to call it our test network, or we'll call our test Wi-Fi. I like capitalization. And we'll set an arbitrary password. We're not going to worry about guest access. Admin. Not now. You don't recommend using admin. I am for tutorial purposes, but I usually have a username related to the client, and I create different users so we have access and the client has access if they need to for management. For now, we're just going to go ahead and create an admin one. I'm not going to bother with it. I think it won't let me do it without an admin email. So it will tell you that it's a weak or strong password. Oh, I guess it won't even let me go forward unless I have a strong password. So let's make something better. Fair enough. I didn't realize that here. We usually I never tried a weak password in quite a few versions. I usually use a better password for my clients. Now, this is for your Ubiquity account, so you can tie different ones together. We're going to skip that for now, as I'm going to do a separate tutorial on how that works. Because the cloud access that allows you to manage different accounts is pretty slick, but it's a little confusing at first, so it's going to be a separate tutorial. So we're not going to cover that in any of this. So it has the information, everything that's going to be in here. So we're going to go ahead and finish. And now we log in with the credentials we created. And we are in. So right now we're only going to cover the Wi-Fi. I'm going to do another tutorial on like the security gateway, but this is to get it going, to show you just how it goes. So you try and go you the basics of getting it set up. So the first thing we're going to do is we have two devices. One of them we adopted, which is this UniFi Outdoor. One is managed by other. We just have another one on network that we're setting up. We're not managing that one. So now we can adopt that one into our network, and what you would use is whatever the admin credentials were for that unit, but we're not going to. So we're not going to mess with this one at the moment right now. So we're just going to leave it alone and just focus on this one. Now, the first thing you may have noticed is the versions of software are pretty outdated. So we're going to go ahead and do an upgrade on it. So I'm going to hit upgrade. Yes, we want to go from version 3.2 to 3.7. So we'll let it do this real quick. This is going to take a couple minutes. But through the magic of editing, it'll only take a few seconds. All right, so we have the unit now updated, and so I can start going through some of the features on here. So when you're first on a dashboard, because we're only covering Wi-Fi today, everything else is grayed out except for the WLAN one active device here. So all these other features come on, and like throughput is if you have one of the UniFi security gateway products, and it is managed through the software as well. So it's only going to give you the information related to the WLAN devices connected to here. Now, for every device you add to the network, they get all the same settings pushed to them. So if we keep adopting more devices as they go down, you would go and see all of them as one single network. And the way you manage the networks is all the way down here in these settings. So you have the site configuration, default site, wireless networks, and we have one called our test Wi-Fi. Now, if I change this, and let's say we had 20 different UniFi devices attached, when we make a change to this, and we'll just edit something simple, we'll call it our Wi-Fi 2, just so we have a name change to it. And you'll go over here, and let's go back to the dash. Actually, let's go to the devices. And you can see it says provisioning over here. And what that does is it would pushes this out. And we have some sites with like 30 or 40 of these at a time, and it staggers it, but it still only takes a few minutes, and it pushes out all those configuration changes across all the UniFi devices. Now, if you're wondering, do these have to be the same devices? No. You can mix and match all the devices however you want. And now it's connected. So it doesn't take long at all to do. And you don't have to have all the same devices. This one in particular is an outdoor device, but you can mix and match old devices, new devices, the ACs, the 5 gigahertz, the 2.4 gigahertz, and you can set it up as one network. I mean, there are advanced ways you can say only push this network to this, so you can create multiple Wi-Fi networks across the devices, but then segment them out. Generally, most people want a unified network. That way, as you move through your office, you can easily go through and just keep connecting, and the handoffs are seamless. So let's say you walk from one end of the building to the other, and it's a very large building, or in our case, we do this with some of the factories. The network is just universally the same everywhere. And if you want to make a change to that network, when you provision it, it'll do it. Now, there are advanced ways as well. You can do this across sites. So we have one client that has a UniFi system at 2 different locations that are tied together over a VPN, and we have the UniFi set up so they call back across the VPN, and that's where they get their settings from. So they still have only one single server controller. Now, just so you know, the controller software does not have to be running for these to function. You still get the functionality of the unit itself as far as authenticating and allowing Wi-Fi devices to be connected. You don't get any other advanced features such as login because the devices are done. But if the software's not running, the UniFi carries on and keeps working. That's an important thing because a few people have been confused by that, where they think that the software has to be running all the time. It does not. So once you're here in the settings, and I'll show you how quick it is to create a new wireless network. So we'll call it another wireless. And you can set up, let's say WPA personal, another security key for this one. It does support WPA enterprise as well. So you could create different authentication methods, radius profiles. We're just going to do that. And it's nice. When you click on it, I actually like that it gives you the password. I just said something simple like this. This makes it really convenient. You just don't have to worry about, oh, no, I don't know what the password is, so I have to reset it. You click on it, it'll give you the password. There's some advanced options. If you're running VLANs, it has the option to tag it to a VLAN ID, and that is on a per wireless network you create. So the first wireless network can be on one VLAN, the second wireless network can be on another VLAN. Of course, you're going to need a switch that supports VLANs, but this is really nice. That way you could actually run two separate networks on one physical device, or more than two networks. I think 5 is what's supported on these right now. So you can have multiple networks and then have it going to different VLANs with different network settings. So based on what SSID password combination, it puts them on different networks, but physically you only have to deploy one device. This is a really nice feature. I've seen a lot of school districts use this, so they have private and public networks, and they just have them VLANed across there. Pretty neat. You have WAN scheduling controls, so you can say I only want it to be on during these times, which is pretty cool. You have some advanced controls, which I haven't used much of to test them. I just leave it here at default. Custom controls like basic are supported for people connecting at different speeds. So it's one of those advanced features. If you say I only want people that connect at this to be able to work on there, I've always left that at default, and I've never had a problem with it. Like I said, these work really flawlessly. The WLAN schedule is nice if you have in a restaurant, but you don't want people sitting in a parking lot afterwards, which they found to be a problem, where people come at night, sit and download movies. So they enable a schedule, so the wireless network for the guest network, or just for the network that they have the customers connecting to, they have it turning off and only operates during the restaurant hours. Depends on how nice you want to be with sharing out all of your network. By default, it's WP2 AES, but you can make it fall back to the TKIP only if you want, so it does have that supported. And it does support WPA1 if there's some special use insecure case where you want to do that. Prevent the SSD from being broadcast, that's right there. Now, under the networks, once again, these settings are always default to the 192.168.1.24, but those networks are only related to the UniFi security gateway and have no effect on the Wi-Fi units. As you can see, the IP address of ours is 3.194. So we have the status LED, alert emails, speed test. Once again, this is part of the UniFi security gateway, so it won't really matter. It does offer remote syslog servers, so you can do remote syslogging and remote SMP and push it out elsewhere. You actually, these have like an SSH controller in them. They're basically really cut down Linux boxes that each device itself is, which is kind of cool. So, admins. We have me as a super administrator, but you can add multiple admins to this. That way you can have multiple people managing it. That way when you're going through the logs, you can determine who did what, when. Maintenance. Pretty straightforward. Compact database options, historical data retention. Default is disabled. We can say we want to keep 30 days of statistics on here. You can then compact it, or it does it automatically after so long. What levels, if you want really high level of logging in there. Check for firmware updates. Backup data retention. So you can have it download so many days when you do the download of the backup. Download support info and show system config. You can also restore from here, so you can have it automatically do restore. Now it does have a auto backup option, so you enable auto backup and you can control the information here. Pretty straightforward as far as that goes. Hotspot, part of the UPAC. I have not messed with any of this, so I don't have a lot of information on it. And routing and firewall is back to the UniFi security gateway. I'm going to do a separate review on that device. The other thing you may want to enable is going to be like this automatic firmware upgrade, which is nice because if there's a new firmware and you update the software, it's going to automatically just push it to the devices. I have this enabled all over the place, and knock on wood, none of these have failed with any major issues or anything with the firmware update. I had one that we don't know why it decided it didn't want to take the firmware, and it did not load, but it also didn't brick. We reset the device and loaded it, and it loaded fine. But I mean, that's one out of the hundreds of them we've had. So I've never had to return one for that issue. Now, the device itself, we're going to, let's just close these windows over here. So when you double click it, you're going to get this here. Now, configuration, I like the fact that you can name them. So if you have a whole lot of them, you can name them. So I'm going to put this one next to my desk and hit save. And it then now has a name. This is really handy. So when we do deployments in clients, we're going to say front office, back office, middle office, whatever the names of all the devices are, we can put them on there, and it makes it really easy so you understand which one is which. There's also this feature here, locate, and locate is really easy. It locates it by making it blink. So you can force it to blink on there so you know which one's which. So let's say you did a deployment and you don't know which one's which because the previous tech did not label them as he installed them. We're dealing with that with a new client we're taking over right now. And so we're going to run through and locate them. It's a big warehouse with a dozen of them, and we don't know which one's which. So we just walk around with a laptop, log into software, hit locate, find it, give it a name, move on to the next one. And for each individual one, you can force like very specific settings on it. So you can do something custom other than like the default network settings that are pushed to all of them. And that's where you can do that. They even have some custom firmware upgrade options, so you can do that. I've not tested or even tried to compile custom firmware for the devices. It's probably another kind of special use case. You can just reboot the units, which is kind of cool too. Now, I'm actually going to log into my UniFi at home. That way I can show you some of the statistical information because this is a new one and it just doesn't have much on here. So we'll log in real quick to that one. I'm going to obscure the information though for it. All right, this is my UniFi at home, and I can't really show you the client ones because there's too much going on there with client stuff, and we're real strict on privacy. So you can see some of the current statistics, 89.7 gig worth of traffic at my house, the different clients that are connected, and let's actually show you the clients. And they are some Chromecasts, lots of them, and the kids' phones and things like that. Clear. This is kind of the fun stuff. I know how long that client's been there. So 17 minutes ago, Emily got home. The Kindle's been connected for a couple days, actually, because we had a reboot. Oh, and this is Emily's boyfriend. His phone has connected too. 17 minutes ago as well. So we can actually track and see how much data each one of them are using. Most of the data we're going to see, though, the larger amounts here are going to be like the Chromecast. And yes, which connection is my connection at home is called Beer. That is my Wi-Fi connection. So you're looking at the statistics. It tells you like most active, and I can already tell you this is my with 85 gigs down. That's the wife was binge watching TV the last couple days, and that happens. You're going to get a lot of data down watching Netflix and things like that in a Chromecast. You can do different insights into some of the different stuff that's on there, showing all the different clients. Nice thing you can do as well, if you aren't sure about someone on a network, you can just reach up and block that client. So if you want them off, and I can say, you know what, I just don't want them on, or they're using up too much network, you just go block and away you go. So back to the clients over here. It's pretty straightforward how it all works. It gives you some of the history of their connections. I don't have too much data retention because it's just my home server, and just a couple days is fine. So it gives a history of them. One of the neat things you can do is force a specific user onto different units. So there's ways you can go through and say, okay, I want to push this person back over to this unit. It also gives you statistics for each one connected. So you can see like this up here, which is the Kindle, what speed it's connected at, the transmit rate it's connected at, the signal strength, and that's on a per device. So we can go here and let's look at Emily's phone again. We can see the amount of data. We can see the signal strength, 89 dBm, what the transmit rate is. Like I said, this is really neat because when you're trying to do some troubleshooting with Wi-Fi, this just makes it really handy. You can go through each one. Now, things like deep packet inspection, once again, that's related to the UniFi gateway. Without those on here, we can't see that. So, and here's the known clients, neighboring access point, past connection, switch stats. It gives you a lot more stuff. Some of the stuff, once again, you're only going to get from if you have the UniFi security gateway. But here's like the past connections, so you can see who's on there. Neighboring access points. There's actually, oddly, no one with a push to access point next door, but it can see that because the UniFi will auto switch networks as needed. And what that does is it's going to switch the networks to be the most efficient network. So if someone else is on the same channel right next door or within the same zone, it can auto switch them. And it does this on a per device basis, not per network. So if you have a very big building and one side there's an interfering network that's on one channel, it doesn't have to be the same channel on the other side. It auto scans and auto updates that. There are alerts. There's no alerts in here, but you can have alerts for things like missing access points. This is actually kind of handy, so if there's a problem with one of them, or it needs to be restarted, or any issues in general, or it just loses connections with it, it can then send you alerts to that problem, which is kind of neat. So it says, oh, you dropped this Wi-Fi connection, so you know that something happened there. Definitely pretty cool. Then there's the device itself. I have a UniFi long range, and there's a firmware upgrade because I updated the software. I didn't update it to the latest version. I'm not going to do that right now because they're all using it, and it takes a few minutes, and then my phone rings because I'm not at home, and they're like, all the Wi-Fi is disconnected. What are you doing? Another cool thing is they built in a live chat and support here for the UniFi, so you can contact UniFi directly, you get your support going on it, which I think is pretty cool that they put that in there. Now, I don't have a 5 gigahertz home, I just have the 2.4, so you're not getting anything on this 5 gigahertz channel, but it will break down the devices and how they're connected, whether it's 5 gigahertz or if it's on the 2.4s. Now, the last thing I'll show you is the map, which is really cool. So this is like the default map that they have loaded to the system. And you can upload your own maps, and then you get them to scale. So let's say 10 meters, and then we're just going to set like this and say maybe this distance is 10 meters set scale. Now what that does is when we want to do coverage maps, you can drag each one of them around and say, okay, this one, and I need coverage over here and over here and over here. So when you upload the map, you put it to scale. Now, please note, this makes zero assumptions about the walls that may be acting to block the Wi-Fi. And we've run into some situations where the older houses that we put them in, and even older buildings around here in Detroit, they have a lot of wire mesh in the walls that just kill Wi-Fi signal, and so we've had to put some really relatively close that look like they'd overlap, but this gives an estimate. Now these estimates are also adjusted for based on the type of device. This is a long range one, so it's the larger one. If there was a smaller Wi-Fi, the non-long range one, the heat map would be different for one is doing that. Now another neat thing about this is when we do maps of buildings for clients, we'll draw out their building, rough it in, do a quick map, and then we go through and drag these everywhere you want them. And then we name them all so that you can look at a map. Now, the cool thing is they're not just movable. You can adjust them. You can click options on them and actually functions from right here. So actually close all this and I'll show you what it does. So if we click it and then we click here, it's going to bring up the properties right away of this particular one. And right here, for example, if I want to locate it, this is really handy when we're laying things out. If I know where someone's at in a building, I'm like, okay, is it this one? We'll click it, and one of the guys look up and go, oh yeah, that one's blinking, so we know where it is. And it makes a nice plotted map for all of them. And once you have it where you want on a map, you lock it so you can't accidentally drag it around, and you just drag all the other ones to it. So this is, it'll list all the unplaced ones, and you just pop them around and put them wherever you want in here. So the mapping feature is really cool and really handy because, like I said, it's really nice, and it's a nice presentation for the client when we hand them a map and say, here's all your Wi-Fi units, and here's how it looks inside your software, and then they can just tell us which one it is, and we can manage a lot of this remotely. So definitely just really slick the way that works. So like I said, that's just the overview of the, well, kind of, taking a look at how this all works in here, and whoops, I accidentally hit update and provisioned it, so I'll probably get a phone call in a minute for why is the Wi-Fi not working. Yeah, it's upgrading. So this is a quick look on this. If you have questions, comments, leave them below. I'm going to do one for the USG as well, but I wanted to get this going just to show you, how the UniFi works and give you an idea just how the software goes. It's really not that hard. This is one of the reasons the software is so popular. It's really easy to use, and as you can see, it's easy to manage, see the statistics, and deploy these, especially in groups, like 20, 30, 40 of them at a time. It doesn't really matter. You just put the controller in, and they all talk to it, and away you go. So once again, if you like the content here, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.